I don't always feel like praying. I don't always feel like going to church, journaling, doing the right things, or reading the Bible. Is that too honest? Like, I just don't. And if more people were honest, they would say the exact same thing. And today on the You, Me, and Jesus podcast, we're going to talk about it. Welcome back to another episode of the You, Me, and Jesus podcast, where it's you, it's me, and it's Jesus. And we talk about all things as it relates to living here on this earth as a Christian. And so today we're talking about developing spiritual disciplines, okay? Developing spiritual disciplines. And I started off the show telling you what I don't always feel like doing. And I am calling you onto the carpet to ask you, what are some of the spiritual things that you do all the time or need to do, and sometimes you just don't feel like doing them? Like, I know for me personally, when it's my time of the month as a lady, the last thing I want to do is wake up. The last thing I want to do is put on clothes and get in the car and go to church and talk to people and have to stand up and sit down and stand up and sit down. You know what I mean? I'm just being honest. So I started off the episode that way because I want you to know that we're all the same. And if you're honest, that you would say that there's some things you don't want to do. But the thing about it is that even though that there are these things that we don't want to do, that we're all being given an opportunity, okay? We're all being given an opportunity. And the opportunity we are being given is, are we going to do the thing that we need to do even when we don't feel like doing it? Because on the other side of doing the thing that we don't want to do, there is something over there. Not just a reward, but there is a muscle that's being built. So let's go ahead and unpack that. When I think about waking up every morning and spending time in prayer every morning, there are a couple things that go along with that. So one is that there's a lot of things happening in our lives. We have all these things to do for ourselves. We have things to do in our house. If you're married or you have children or animals or whatever, there's all these things that need to be done when we wake up or throughout that entire day, okay? Plus, we have our own like mental, emotional, whatever's happening with us, you know? Then we have the people who want something from us or like are reaching out or whatever is going on. So all that type of stuff. And there's so many things that need to be done that day. And to wake up and to abandon all of those things to spend time with God and pray isn't always something that we want to do, because to sit down and talk to God means that you're not on the phone. You're just not doing all those things because you're going to spend time talking to God, developing your relationship with him. And so that I could see that anybody would be like, oh, I just really got to get the day going. I really got to do this thing over here. But what I am learning and have learned is that there are things in our lives that if we prioritize them, that immediately and over time, that they are going to have positive impacts in our lives. We all know that, like, about drinking water, eating healthy, exercising, saying good things to your kids, saying all these things to ourselves or whatever, that over time they have quite the compound effect in a good way. And that's the same thing that goes for specifically spending time in prayer. And I'll keep it honest with you. So I have times where life is just crazy busy. So like I had been preparing for this big surgery that I'm having, and in order to prepare for that, there's all these things that I have to order and learn and prepare for. Just all this stuff that I just did not know. Just all this stuff. Organizing people that are going to help me, spreadsheets, ordering all this stuff. Plus, I have my business and my team not having me for however long that I'm going to be out, and preparing them for all that. Then all the things that I do each day that they can't do, that I have to do triple time for this, double time for this month and next month, in order so that all that stuff is done. All of that needs to be done. And my thought process has been waking up like, oh my God, like I gotta go. I gotta get dressed, right? And there were like many days when I had so many meetings that were early in the morning that when I got up, fed the cats, it was like there was no space to pray because, all that. And I could feel the difference. I could feel that like, because I'm a processor, I'm an external processor. So I speak everything or write everything. I pray everything out loud to like get it out. And I could feel myself just kind of being a little bit congested, but I knew that was like, there wasn't space. And so on a Friday morning when I had no meetings were set up, I was like, okay, phew, now I'm going to process. And being able to get it all out and then praying and talking to God about it was just like, one, it was just releasing all that. Two, was me kind of reconnecting. Okay. Now, before all of this had happened, I spent most of my life not praying in the morning. And it wasn't until I actually went to ministry school. And in ministry school, they were talking about the value of having a quiet time, is what they called it. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do during this time? And they were like, well, just pray, talk to God, journal, read the Bible, read a book, all these different things. And because it wasn't like a regular practice for me, I didn't really see the value of doing it. Like I just could not see the value in doing it. But I knew that other people were doing it, and I was watching them and their relationship with God flourish. And I'm not going to say I was envious. I was hungry. I wanted the experiences that they were having with God for myself. And they were just very clear of like, that doesn't happen unless you spend time talking to God. That means you are going to have to carve out time in your day to actually spend time with God. And I just was so hungry for it over and over and over again. So finally I decided I'm just going to try this. And so I started in the mornings for like 15 minutes. I would just sit up and like try to figure out what to say or what, whatever, you know what I mean? And eventually I started to wake up and then journal. And I'd like journal out all my feelings and all that type of stuff. And then I would talk to God about everything that I journaled about. And a funny thing started to happen. Once I started doing that, I started seeing how weighed down I was not in the day. That when I wrote all this stuff out, good and not so good, like unfiltered stuff out, and said it out loud and prayed it and cried out all the things, just cried it all out, I started to experience the heaviness being gone because I like got it out. And then I started to experience like feeling like God was nearer, right? I can't explain that, but it was like just like a feeling that God was nearer. And then my dreams started to increase, like my ability to hear him even clearer. When I began to pray for people or like, touch people when you're praying for them, just experiencing these different things with God in those times. I didn't understand what was happening or why it was happening. And I started the manifestations of stuff until somebody said to me once, they said, well, Kenya, the more time you spend with God, the closer you are to him. And so you're experiencing some of these things because of your closeness. Like you're able to, you're closer to him than you were before. So now you're able to like sense and see and feel and taste and all those types of things with God. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that, you know? And so now that discipline has become a dependency for me, because as much as I love my friends, it's like they can't help me the way that God can help me. And they don't always have the right things to say when I'm saying what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. And it's unrealistic to put that burden on them or to expect them to be that for me. And so I started letting God be that. And it became like, oh, here's a dependency. And so when I think about today's topic, as we're talking about like developing spiritual disciplines, you know, one of the things when I think about that is you have to ask yourself, well, what is it? What is it that you're trying to do? So let's just say prayer, since that's what we're talking about with, you know, my story. If you're wanting to spend time with prayer, right, then ask yourself, why do you want to spend time in prayer? Not as why your pastors say it, why am I saying it, why the Bible said it. Why do you want to spend time in prayer? Why do you want to talk to God? Like, why? And what is it you're wanting to experience in your time with prayer and in your relationship with God? Because once you can identify what you are wanting or what you're trying to get out of it, then you can see, okay, I want to do this thing, and here is the result that I want, a closer relationship with God. Then when it comes time to develop whatever your spiritual discipline is, it's going to, not easy, but it's going to be easier to do it because of here is the result that you want. You want a closer relationship with God. So in the times when it's my cycle and I'm in pain and I don't feel like going to church, I mean, if I'm in real pain, I don't go. I put a heating pad on my stomach and we just watch some, you know, a service on TV or something like that. It just is what it is. You know, I'm not going to hurt myself trying to go to church. You know what I mean? But when I'm not in pain like that, I say to myself, the reason why I am getting up and going to church is not just out of a discipline to go to church. I'm going because I know that being in the building, in community, with people like me who love Jesus and want to communicate and just have a family-like atmosphere, and then just us doing what we do together, worshiping and all that together, I am going to church because of that. Not just because God invites us to do that or because out of like habit, but because I know that when I go to church, I get to be amongst a community of people who all love Jesus. Because I'm surrounded by all types of people and all different types of facets of life and all the things. But when I'm at church, I know these people love Jesus. And this, we're all after the common thing, which is God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. We're all after the same thing. And that's why I go for that. And so the times when I don't want to go, I remember this is why I'm doing that. I get to go and worship God, and I get to go and be, you know, filled with community, with the message, with all the different things that happen when you are at church. Okay. So the goal of today's episode is to help you get started. If you don't have a specific discipline, don't try to do it all at once. Well, one thing you want to become disciplined at doing. If yours is actually going to church, then you have to ask yourself, why do I want to go to church? What do I want to experience at church? What do I want to bring to church? Okay. And then now with church, you've got to make sure you decide on a church that you enjoy going to, okay? Where they worship Jesus, you can feel God's presence, you're learning, you're growing, and you want to add to, and people want to add to your life, Okay. You want to make sure that you are in an environment where you want to be going to, because if that's your goal is to go to church and you don't like the church you're going to, nobody's going to keep going to a place they don't enjoy going to. So you got to make sure you're going to a place that you want to actually go to. Okay. And then start. All right. Sometimes it may be harder. It's a brand new habit. It may be harder, but you're going to have to develop something to where you're not staying up super late on Saturday night. Okay, where you do have an alarm that goes off, okay, in enough time, and you get yourself out of bed to get dressed to go. If it is your desire to spend time in prayer with God in the mornings, then you're going to go to sleep earlier at night. You've got to set an alarm to give yourself that time to where you have enough time to pray, and then you have enough time to get dressed to do whatever it is you need to do for the day, whether it's work, your business, or whatever it is, okay? So this is all about how to develop spiritual disciplines, and today we basically talked about prayer and going to church, but there are so many other disciplines that you can, get into your life. It's maybe speaking in tongues. It could be tithing. It could be I was reading the Bible. So many other things. But ultimately, start with one and the why, and then you have to put some things in place that is going to help you actually start doing that thing. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, let me know here on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and then like the video and comment. That way the YouTube people love all the things. And then if you are listening on the podcast, make sure you write a review. Let me know. I do read all the reviews when we get them, and so I would love to know. So thank you so much for listening and watching.